Hey y'all, it's Sarah, and as you can see, I am getting ready for some doodles for the new year for my happy planner. This is kind of the idea I'm running with today. I may not get to all of the components because my videos already tend to be really long. I don't leave anything out of them. Y'all may question why I don't shorten them or what have you. And part of it is I don't really have the great skill for editing. The other part is some skills some people need to see. I've seen videos of drawing, especially where you see it in stages and you never know what those little things in between were that help them get to that stage, and then you got to look back and forth. And I'm trying to avoid that. So if you're not a long video person, my videos may not even be for you. If you can just glance at an idea and run with it from there, fast forward through, it's okay. Nobody's feelings are going to get hurt. But this is a theme I'm going with for my planner, and all of January is going to, they're not going to be the same, but they will be kind of cohesive. I'm going with a similar color scheme for the entire month. So one of the themes that I want to run with for January is trying to enhance stencils. I don't know if you guys as planner people are susceptible as I am to some cheap stencils like Dollar Tree stencils. This is a Dollar Tree stencil. This is the one I'm focusing on for most of January. Some of you may already have this stencil. You might recognize it. It's cute. There's some really cute images on here, but we're going to turn them into other images. And I hope to get your brain on that level where you can kind of see more from your stencils than just the basic image that is on here. We're going to be turning these into other things. And you might can recognize right now. I'm going to flip this to a blank page so you can see this a little better. You might can see right now this is going to be the one that I'm using for New Year's. I know it's strange. When I think of New Year's and was trying to think of some icons to draw, I thought I could either go really generic or I could pick a New Year's type theme. Champagne came to mind for me. I've never actually tasted it though. Have you guys tasted it? I've never actually had it. But the first thing that popped in my mind when I thought about the week of New Year's was champagne. So here we are. Even if you're not into champagne, there might be some ideas on here that you can run with, just some little tips and tricks that you can run with, especially if you're trying to enhance your doodling skills. There are skills in that, and I want to share some of those. So this is a stencil I'm going to be using. If you don't have this stencil, this was a Dollar Tree purchase. And hopefully you guys can kind of see where I'm going to go with it. And I did it. Honestly, I was going to do it with pink champagne. And I did do some pink champagne somewhere. There we go. So that's the next thing I wanted to get into. You don't have to go with the markers that I use, the color scheme that I use, any of that. Totally turn it into your own. I'm not even going to push any marker brand on you. I'm not here to push any markers or any type of markers. But I will say, because I get asked this a lot, and especially for my happy planner, I will be using these cheapy. Can you see that? This is a Dollar Tree purchase as well. And there's 8 of these for $1.25. And this is one of my favorite ones. And there's some reasons why. There are some techniques that you can get out of your tools matter a lot of times. Not so much the markers, but the type of pen that you use is going to give you a much different graphic each time, or a much different image each time. To get some of the details I'm showing you, I'm going to be doing it. This is just a ballpoint style pen. It is not a felted type pen. You know, the kind that are like those tips. I will show some. I'll do some layouts later that have a different pen style. But this one right here gets some techniques in there really easily. So I want to get into that. I'm going to pull this to the side. If you have not seen some of my previous planner pages, and I just brought the pages out. Let me grab those. So for one, you can see I've already tried to sketch some things out. For one, as far as techniques go, I could not find a planner. I've got, this one is Tropical Boho Happy Planner. And I couldn't find any locally that didn't have any print on them. So I've got to also figure out a way to go over some of the print that's already on it. This has an image already on it of some tropical leaves that I've got to try to blend into my holiday layout. And I will be showing that in some of the videos on how, if you do have a planner that's already got some things pre-printed in it, to try to work them into your images. I did happen to pick, just out of sheer luck, the color scheme that I chose happened to work with what goes down the center of this. And like I said, I normally pick one that doesn't have any of those kind of things printed to them. I got lucky. You can see I've already blocked off some lines across here and here just using my marker. And like I said, I'm not going to plug any markers. This one is, I've got generics. I'm using generics in this color scheme. This blue comes out almost like a denim blue maybe with a little bit of aqua undertones. But that's what I'm using. It happened to match out perfectly. I've got a section that I like to account for weather. And also for dinner. And that's the only one I track is dinner. I don't track any of the rest of the meals, but I do track dinner because it saves a lot of what are we eating today. So that's what these two spaces are blocked off to be. And I've shown that in other videos where I just use a little bit of washi tape and kind of slide my marker across there in one swift motion so that you get a line that is nice and crisp and almost looks like the printed line on there. So let's talk about this. I'm going to bring this stencil in. And we're going to be using the ketchup bottle. Now, I can tell you, I did it a couple different ways when I was test running this idea. And I elongated the neck of some of mine right in here. So they were a little longer, a little taller, a little more elegant. And as I played with the idea, I realized that honestly, just at the size and scale that it is, it's fine. It was extra work to sketch it in and then come in and sketch some new lines to lengthen that neck. But just know that once you're all said and done and get your details in, this scale is fine. I'm using the big planner. So I think that's how they're labeled. This is what I think they deem classic size, I believe. This one is the 7 by 9 1/4, and I'm actually showing you on this size, which is the 8 1/2 by 11. So a hair difference, but I think the scale will still work even if you're using the classic size. So I've come in and I started penciling in. Now I penciled in kind of for the benefit of getting through a video quicker because I know that I tend to drag them out. So I started to pencil in to at least kind of get a basic idea of where I lay my things out. And I know some of you are into the idea of how to design your spread, and now also maybe on getting some doodles on your spread or doing it on your own instead of using the stickers. So I'm going to go back and forth on both topics. One, for me, if you've seen any of my other spreads or you've seen any of the ones I've shared in some of the planner groups, I tend to put most of my designs on the weekend because I know my weekends are usually a lot more free. I don't have as much information to put there, and it happens to cluster down this little section here. So I'm able to put my biggest designs there. You choose. If you've got a busier part of your week, swap it out, rotate it. I also typically will use this space up because very seldom do I list anything down this grid pattern. And if I do have something to list, I typically will lean towards these lines. So more of my designs come up here. But really, you can go all over. And by the time it's done, I'm going to show you the main design, and then I'll go in and repeat that design multiple times throughout my spread and share that at the end. So if you're just looking for the finished product, scroll all the way to the end. You'll see what it is, and maybe you can copy it. This is where I'm going to start. This is what I'm going to show you. Now, any other time, I'll pencil this in just to kind of give myself an idea because it takes me a little time to figure out what my layout's going to be. I'm coming in. See if I can get it lined up. I'm going to start with this sort of front one first. I want you to see really quick. Maybe I can show this really well. So I am not outlining this full section here. I mean, this part is the pencil point, but when I come in with my pen, I'm also going to only do that section. I'm not going to go all the way around this stencil, how it's in these different sections. I'm not going to go all the way around that, and it's hard to see working in a stencil, so I'm trying to get a little closer, and hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, extreme close-up. I'm going to come in here and maybe get it lined up pretty good. I can always erase it later. This is why I love these pens, because the line, you'll notice I'm not going to erase any of the lines in between my artwork. Very seldom. I've been asked if I do that, and if you look, very often I do not. Like, I just leave the line, work it into my artwork. Nobody ever notices. It's not a big deal. You can always go in with some whiteout or something. The only problem is that some markers don't go over the whiteout as well. So when you go to color that area, you might not get as good coloring coverage. So I've made that a little darker. Now you can see I only outlined those areas because we're going to start adding our own personal details just from there. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I don't know why I staggered mine. You could have put them side by side. Some of my images, they're side by side when I practiced and played with them, and some of them are staggered. So I decided for this spread to go up this staggered way. Okay, so here's where it starts coming into adding some details and then adding kind of your own spin to it. I'm going to come here to this pot because I don't do curved lines very even. They're going to be all cattywampus if I try. So I can either take this one or this little curve down here for my bottles. And actually, I think I'm going to use this curve. And you can do each one of them different because we can have a whole lot of different labels. I'm going to make them look slightly different for each one. So I don't know if you can see super well what I'm doing. But I'm lining this up evenly across this bottle. And probably right at where this bottle started to turn is where I've got that one aligned. And I'm going to come down here, lower to the base. I'm going to give a little room at the base so I can throw little details down here in the bottle. And now I've got the beginning of a label. And if you notice, my pen is skipping. I think this one is a little older. And it's got stuff all on the tip. But, see where that skipped? Don't sweat those things. We can work those in absolutely. So now I'll do, let's use the pot here. I'm going to take that label just a little bit lower. And I want to try to center, I'm looking at the top of this pot right there. I'm trying to center it with the top of my body, so my bottle. Ooh, easy for you to say. And go that route with it. And then I may make a much narrower label. So there we go. They both have labels now. The next thing that I want to do is down here at the bottom. We're going to come back in with the ketchup bottle. And I'm going to, can you see through that? I am going to kind of line it up just on the inside of there. And bring a line down. And like I said, I have this pen that is giving me problems. And that's actually not even a bad thing. I kind of like when the line skips. And it really just depends on my pen. You can tell, you might can tell it's got some fuzz stuck to it from being in my pocket waiting for me to use it. So I did the same thing on both sides. So this gave our bottle kind of that thicker glass look at the base. I'm going to go ahead and do it on this one as well. You don't even have to go all the way across. You can come part of the way across. You can go all the way across. You can meet them together. Came over a little far on that side, but it's okay. So you can see those lines did not go on there as smooth as I would have liked. I really should pull and a cleaner pen, but I'm not gonna, because I want you to see that you don't have to panic. You're not gonna ruin anything, even if there's incidences pop up. Okay, that is part of the base or part of that bottom. Now to give it to some dimension, I'm gonna come back in with this lid on this jar, and this makes it real simple. There's a flat section of this. I'm just gonna line it up down here with the bottom of this bottle. And come in here and follow that little curve. Now it looks like you can kind of see into the rounded base of the bottom of the glass, I guess. 3D is not always my thing. And like I've said before, I am faking my way through looking artistic without actually being artistic. This is one way, being able to come in and use something to trace, whether it's a stencil or just something you have in your kitchen that you can outline and trace. Sometimes I need help with the straight lines. I need help with the curved lines. So anything that you can find that'll help you do that. And I'm just kind of showing you ways to think that direction. So we've got a couple of details going there. Let's get up to these lids. So I want to talk about these lids. I'm going to do them two different ways. I'm going to go ahead and bring my little ketchup bottle back in. And I think I will finish out this line here at the top on one of them. But I'm not going to do it on the other one. You're going to see why. Because one is going to look like it's a bottle that's already been opened, and one is going to look like it's sealed off. So I went ahead and just finished out that top line there. And as best I can, with an unsteady hand and sitting at a weird point of view, I'm going to try to bring this line down to here. Don't worry if it's not perfect. We're going to put enough details on there, you're not going to notice. Seriously, just don't sweat it. So on this one, we're going to come, I try to get a little closer to make sure you're not missing anything. I'm going to try to come around just a hair. Not much. Don't need much, just a little bit of a line, just like that. And then I came down at an angle. There we go. Now we have a lid, we have it established. This one I'm going to do a little bit different. I am gonna curve that section around some, bring that line down, link those together. But that's where their similarities stop. So this one with the lid, I think I'm going to add another part of the label. I'm going to add something else decorative. So I'm going to bring this jar lid back in here. And just pick a place somewhere on your bottle where you think it might come down to. I'm going to leave a little gap there. And also, this is where you might need a round stencil. If you can't do round very well, which I cannot, some people can. It's not a very big round. This one's not going to be a very big circle, but I can't do a great circle at all. So I'm just going to bring in a little stencil. Let's try to center it. This will make it a little easier for me to decide where the end of this label thing is going to go. So a little circle, and if you want to, you can add a little circle inside of that. I think I can manage. I'm not even putting a full circle. I just put almost like a letter C. It's almost like a little copyright symbol, if that makes sense. Now I'm going to come in with this one right here. Try to line it up centered on your bottle so that your curve is even across the bottle. And if you notice, I'm centering that circle right there. And I'm just going to bring this across. There we go. We have a pretty decent label. That's where my my wrapper label, that gold foil, that's where it's going to end at. Now I can do the same thing over here. Like I might not even bother putting the circle in it. I might just give it like a little ribbon kind of look. Oh, mercy, I just got all kinds of out of line. Y'all see that? See, this is why I say don't panic. It'll be fine. So this is where we are at this point. You're already at a pretty good start. Those look like bottles to me. My next step, I came down right here, and this is where I'm really not going to be using the stencil. You could always do it the same way along the edges like we did right here if you felt like you couldn't follow this curve very well. But I'm going to wing it, and I'm going to come down, and I'm not going to put much pressure on this pen, and that's part of the reason why I didn't want to trade out pens. I'm not going to put much pressure on this pen. It's already wanting to skip a little bit because, like I said, I had it in my pocket waiting to use so I didn't misplace it, and it's kind of made the ink a little less flowy, and that's okay. On this particular part of details, I'm cool with that. So I kind of came down this edge, and then I came across just above where the label is, there to there, and I'm just going to do like jagged movements all the way up there, really light. You can see my pen faded in and out on me. I'm leaving that. Same thing there. If you want to, come in, throw a few skipped fading lines down, like bottle reflections. Same thing I did up here, I'm going to do down here, but kind of opposite here, because we're going to cut off that very top point. So I'm bringing the little mountain up. And now we've got like some reflective glass. Now it's looking like we've got some details. And see, that's becoming less and less noticeable. I don't panic about stuff like that. If I really wanted to fix it, guys, if you ever question how to try to handle something like that, a white pen, your choice, whatever your favorite white pen is. Like I said, I wasn't going to try to plug any products in here, but I was going to show you what I was using. I just went in and did that. The only reason I don't typically even try to correct the mistakes is because white pens, white markers, any of those things, when you go to color over that, it's likely to leave some little marks. Same as why I don't white these lines out. Okay, so here we are at this moment. Details on this lid. And this is kind of the same for both lids. I am just going to make some small, almost curved flicks right here. You can do as many as you want. You can do as few as you want. Now, all of a sudden, that bottle is looking a little curved. You can do the same thing up here. You can give this little bottle a little more texture. I'm going to do very similar here. We're just going to overdo it a little bit. So I have to turn sideways, guys. I'm sorry. I know this is awkward sometimes, but I've mentioned the whole reason that I started doodling this year was because I had a spinal cord injury that messed with my fine motor skills. So my arms only work in certain positions. Okay, so on this one, I just did, I don't know, but it turned sideways. It looks like I just put a letter J there in that little cap. And I'm going to do right here, I want to make sure that I do the same lines like I did there in the same location, but I'm going to drag them a hair longer. And you notice I'm dragging them down, and the ink line is starting to fade. That's why I like the ballpoint pens. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like my art pens for certain types of graphics. So I'm doing the same thing on the other end. I'm going to drag some of these up. I want to come up here, do my little lines in the foil up here. And now, as you can see, we have kind of this foil texture going on here with just a few well-placed little flicks. Nothing major, but all of a sudden that went from the plain bottle look that we looked at the beginning to something with a little extra to it, something with a little substance to it. So this one I'm just going to turn around and add the very same details that I just did on that one. I'm not going to change anything other than maybe how I do the label. This is a good time. You can come in and put some kind of design here on the label. I'm going to just really simplify how I do my label here. So for this one, I'm going to align, just using this little space, align that right there and put a few lines in, just to look like maybe the label is a little smancy. I could do the same thing on this one, but I think what I'll do on this one, just to have a different idea, to have different variety of your bottles, I'm just going to come in and use a straight edge in my little something here. There we go. My pen just did not want to work. So I just put two, honestly, really uneven lines pretty close together. And there you go. It looks like something. You could always go in a little fancier and customize it. Maybe put your name in the bottle or actually write some things there. I didn't take it that far, but you totally could. Be a cute place to like write a special occasion, or if you're actually somebody that does New Year's parties or things like that. It'd be a cute spot to go in and write, because I think it's a decent enough size to get some lettering on there. I'm just doing a few more flicks down. The last thing that I did for my bottles, look, I might could throw a line or two up here. The last thing that I did in my bottles is itty bitty dots or circles. If you can actually manage the little circle, this is honestly really good practice for me as far as motor skills go. But if you can do just a little circle, if not, just put dots. If you've seen my other videos, I use dots a lot. So I've got my little dots in place. Now I can start adding a few other things. I'm sitting here, I made myself so many options. I'm having a really hard time deciding. But I think I definitely want to add the greenery, because I want to show you guys something fun to do with the greenery, or getting kind of the pine needles look. I wanted to show something fun with that, and maybe a little cheat for the next part of this that I'm going to draw. So on this side, I'm just going to come off of here and flick over. There is no rhyme or reason to that. There is no greatness to that, but I flicked over. And maybe flick upwards. It's okay if you can see that line's a little, it's not smooth, it's not straight, but that's fine. So the part of this that matters is when I say that these pens can do your work for you. When I lift up on this one, that line's going to fade out and feather out as I go down and give me a much more detailed look. So I'm flicking and lifting. And don't worry, I'm going to go in and fill in more, but I'm just kind of getting my bases of the length. And you can even make these a little longer when you flick. So it doesn't look like much. Now I've got that first layer. We're upside down now. Hold on. I'm going to come back in and flick a couple more times. Now you start seeing that feathered fullness start to appear. And don't worry if you don't get it super full, because guess what? We're going to color it in anyway. But if you wanted it to look really nice and full, which I tend to fill mine instead of having the needles really sparse, I tend to go in and make the extra flicks. Now, if you notice, that line that wasn't so great and grand is way less obvious. Went along on that one. Got a little overexcited with my flick. This is why I don't like to cut things, because a lot of times it helps to see other people's mistakes. I learn better from my mistakes than I do if I just get it perfect right out of the gate. So I'm going to figure that one out. There we go. I think those are good enough. I got this one long little spriggity fella here, so I'm just going to come down here and flick a few more, and now he just looks like just one of the little pieces. So I likely will use this. This is going to be an icon that you're going to probably see through the rest of my January, because like I said, I didn't make it 100% matchy-matchy, but I did manage to come up with ideas for January to make the ideas cohesive enough so that you get like a really cohesive look as you flip through your January. I don't know that I can promise I'll do that all year round with any of my other spreads, but I did do it for January, and they all will involve something to do with this particular stencil, whether I'm using the curve for it, whatever I'm using, this is what's going to be my focus. So on this bottom section, because I'm going to use it to cheat, I definitely want it a little thicker. I think I'm going to use it to cheat with a wine glass or the drinking glass. I'm probably going to come over here and do the same thing and carry this greenery over to this side. So flick out again. Flick whichever way you want to fill in some space. This is a really good filler. And it's really not hard to do. It's almost impossible to mess up. Because like even right there, do you see all of those lines overlap where I'm flicking outwards? It's okay. It all comes out in the wash. Even though I overlap these, I still think they will come out fine. So I'm going to pretend like I'm getting to the one underneath there too and follow it out. And like I said, we'll color this in. And there's something that I wanted to show you, a fun little thing that I wanted to show you when I color these in. And maybe that needs to be a separate video because I know these get long. I don't know. I feel like I need one that comes up. Should we swoop one? Let's swoop one up for the fun of it. Who's here to stop us? Like I said, don't get too lost in what you think perfection is, because very little of mine, like when I share them, people are so kind and sweet, and I could sit and show you where I felt like every mistake had been made in it, but once it's all said and done, it ends up fairly decent. Okay, so that's what I added so far. We're already at a cute little something. Let's take this further. This is where you might need another stencil, or you might need a quarter to trace, because I'm going to use this circle right here, and it really is about somewhere in between a nickel and a quarter. You decide. I think I'm going to bring it over here to start with. So let's do this. I think I'm going to bring it to right about here in this corner. And I'm not really putting much into getting this line down here in this bottom section. I didn't push very hard on that. So I did my circle. This is going to be fun. And this is where it benefits me that I am literally so not smooth at things on my own freehand. So if I try to trace around this circle again, just inside the circle, it starts to get wobbly. Depending on which way I turn. It got a little wobbly in there. That's okay. That's what we want it to do. Let yourself be a little wobbly right there, but keep it fairly close to your edge, because this is about to be a rind to maybe a dried orange. And then I'm going to come in here, somewhere where the center is. I'm going to look at this and kind of see, because this will show me basically where the center is. You don't have to be this exact, guys. I just at least want to halfway get it there. And I did that little thing. I don't know. I just did it. I come around the edge again. And I'm drawing the same crooked old circle, except for I'm taking a little space in between. Can you see where we're at? So they're a little wobbly. I want that section wobbly too. And I'm gonna come down with a little V, basically. Can you see where we're going with this? We're just doing a bunch of little letter V's. And this is where you can start adding your details. You can flick down through there, or you can come up like this and just do like a bunch of W's, I guess, right at that top. And bring them down. This is such a small scale that any detail you add right here at this scale is going to look nice. There you go. We have a cute little slice of fruit. And I kind of went with this side because I think that I'm going to end up putting my wine glass or my sipping glass on this side. Now this gets fun because you got a couple options here. Let me zoom out so you can see. Okay, check it out. We've got a couple options with our glasses, with our stemware. That's what I should be calling it, is my stemware. If you notice, we've got this stemware, and then we have this more traditional shaped stemware. I practice with both. I like both. I'm likely going to, maybe I'll find room to mix both. I certainly think I'm personally going to go with this one. But the process is the same no matter which one you try. And this is what I did. So you can look at this shape. This was one. This was, let me slide this over. This is this top one up here. And this is just the spatula. And then we have the wooden fork here. This is going to be my more traditional glass. And if you noticed, I came down here for myself, just for my own frame of reference, and marked it right about, if you just look at the length of the handle, I marked it down probably about 2/3 of the way, because I don't think I need it that tall. You could go taller if you wanted to. I just didn't think proportion-wise I was going to go that tall, so I went to about there, so I'd kind of know where to stop my line. I'm going to try to line this up, so, oh, there's room where I can fit it all in that one square. That's awesome. I only have one planner to really test things out in, so I only get one shot at sharing this with you guys. I don't know if I should just do a page that has my doodles or show them how I use the doodles on my planner. And there's no way to get all the information on there without it being long. So I'm coming in. I'm not even trying to get heavy pen marks on this because it's going to be glassware. And glassware is dainty and see-through and things. So I'm not even making sure that my line is super heavy. Now, at this point, I really can get away without having any base down there. If you really want it to look like there's some kind of base down there, you can do a couple things. You can take this little section of your spatula and just run it through there and kind of sketch right at that neck curve. Or you can take this little section right here, which really looks like a wine glass base, and kind of line it up there. And I'll show you how to do that when I get to the next image. But I was also showing you how to cheat. We didn't have to put all the details in. You could hide most of it with the greenery, so you really don't even have to do that because you don't hardly see it. But I wanted to show anyway. So when it came to getting some dimension there on the ledge, I'm coming back to the spatula. This little curved edge, my top of my spatula. And I'm going to center it on my glass, which is pretty easy because I just matched up the stems. And I just swung that little line across there. And I'm going to do the very same thing. Let's get a little closer. So I got you a little bit closer. I'm going to do the very same thing, except for I'm going to turn that spatula upside down so I have that very same curve and line it up right about there. Because I lined it up a little further down to account for the width of my pen running across there. And there you go. So we now have a really clean shape for a glass. We're going to do the same thing with the glassware that we did over here with the bottles. The first thing I came in and did is, I don't know the technical name for this because I don't drink enough, but the well here at the bottom that usually curves in, I went ahead and kind of put something there to keep in my mind. And this is what we're going to do real similar to, look, I can't get my lines straight, so I'm scratching them up, and that's okay. It works. It works for this look a lot. The reason that I use these type of details is because they're not real hard for someone to do. Most of my details originally came from the fact that I was a little more shaky, and I realized that I could work them into my work, and you didn't have to be great at it, but it was fun. So I'm doing the same thing with this one. And I'm going to come up here and do the same things. Bring that down. I don't know if y'all just heard my door rattling. I'm pretty sure that's the cat telling me she wants to hang out in here. So I can add a few bubbles here. Do the same way. Now, when it comes to adding your liquid, you could use any of these curves, to be honest. I just felt like that one for that spatula helped me align this so much better. So I'm just going to come in and do the same thing. We're going to do one upways. I didn't push down hard on that. So that line's a little thinner. You almost just are just holding that and dragging it across. So those lines really are a little thinner. So it's almost like you're looking through the glass there. The next thing I did, just start dragging some lines down. Scratch a few lines down. Don't worry about it. By the time it's all colored, all these different kind of details are added in. It really looks nice. You come up here and bring a few lines down if you want to. Oops. Up here, I mean. Up here where y'all absolutely just couldn't see what I was doing. That place up there. So that's pretty much details on my wine glass. You can see those lines are not straight. If I'd have tried to like outline inside of that really even and smooth, I would struggle so hard. That's why I'm trying to teach some of these things, because I can't do the things straight. I can't do them very well, but now I've learned how to use my issues or my inability to work in my favor for details. So I might throw a few lines here coming up from this bottom along this edge. You don't have to. You can if you want to. You don't have to. Those details I think were already enough. So we've got a pretty good little vignette going. Okay, so you can see over here, I've already sketched out with pencil. And like I said, I very seldom do pencil myself. I normally just go straight in with this pen and hope for the best. But I do want to talk about how to get a fairly decent base here for your wine glass. And I'm going to go back to the rolling pin here and this little area here. And you can see I've outlined these the same way. I did tilt this one off the page just to save me from having to do another one of the bases down here. I just thought it was a nice little cheat. So I'm going to go ahead and do this without pencil. Wish me the best of luck, because I'm going to go straight in with pen. And I just outlined it that way. I slid it up literally just a hair. And then swooped around again. That's all. Now, when I go to add the other details, I certainly can put little scratchy marks in there, whatever else I might want to throw on that. I'm going to come back in now and outline my stemware real quick, the same way I did before, but I did want to show that base and how I kind of went in order to get some dimension to the base of that. Oh, I don't even know if I went over that all the way. It's hard to tell. Let's try it again, just to be on the safe side. Okay, now I did. I don't want to go and erase, thinking I'm erasing pencil marks, and erase my whole section there. So around here, I came down a little bit, swooped over, and came down. I followed really kind of the edge of that, and just flicked a few lines over that way. You could come up, do a few lines right here. We're going to drag some upwards the same way we did. Almost the same, since we didn't have a base on that other one to worry about. I tried to be clever where I didn't have to do too many of the bases, which is why this side was that way. I wanted to get the clinking glasses. And when you go to do the clinking glasses, I did them transparent to each other. And by that, I mean, you can see here, I went all the way through there. When I drew through the line of the other one. And I'm going to do the same thing on this because honestly, glass is transparent. So we should be able to see through both of them, the images through both of them. You might make your line a little lighter right here as you go to do that part. But I don't think it's that big of a deal. So I'm going to go ahead and finish throwing the details on here like I did with the other glass. And then we'll start getting into some of the coloring because I know that's where people have a lot of fears. There's a lot more details I could have added on here, but I'm saving a couple things for next week for this similar theme. So I think I'm going to put this a little more minimal than some of my little ideas here. I don't think I'm going to add the cups or the cinnamon this time, but don't worry, we're doing that next week for sure. So I'm going to add these details and let's start coloring. So you can see I pretty much did them the same way. They cross over one another. You can see through. I think that would be fairly accurate. I can't shoot for super realism. I don't think I'll ever be that kind of person. Now I'm just adding a few bubbles floating up, trying to do tiny circles as much as I can. It's not the easiest, but I think those are pretty cute. Let's talk about coloring because I'm excited to get these colored. So I'm not gonna push any marker brand on you. I keep telling you that, unless it's one that I've collaborated with and it really has proved itself to me. I don't really have a favorite. There's a lot of trendy ones. I had to have all the trendy ones, and I don't know that I've found that any one is honestly that much better than the other. So one of the things that I want to start with is I'm going to be using a highlighter for this. And these two are just about the same. These are the knockoff. I mean, you guys know what these are. These are the knockoffs. This one is a bluish kind of color. And really quick, I'm going to test to see which one's lighter. Now, I'm going to tell you, it's not necessary. Guys, do not think it is necessary to use multiple colors to get your shading and stuff, because layering will do the very same thing. For the sake of time and speed, I do happen to have some that are like the next shade darker than the others, especially in my brush marker lines. But don't think, like, you don't need a ton. We can do some of this just by layering them. I'm going to come in. I've got this blue color. It's really a cool blue. The lid doesn't want to stay on this one well, though. It's really a cool blue. It's almost, you can see it's a little bit aqua, a little bit denim. It's a, back in the day, I would have called it country blue almost. Okay, on your stroke marks, I'm using the widest point of that tip. This is how I get the watercolor look. So I'm just bringing it down to different levels. Don't be particular about this, because the more you layer these strokes, the cooler watercolor look you get. So I can leave some of that right there blank. That's okay. Seriously, look, I am not doing a great job. Don't worry, this mess turns into something else. You don't want to cross over too much on your strokes. You want to go in like your first layer of ink, get it applied, let it dry, because all of this looks way different when it dries correctly. Just so you know that. I'm just staggering in no particular rhyme or reason, leaving some white areas, whatever. I'm just kind of staggering it out. You do the same thing. Watch, I am not being... This used to freak me out because I can't color as good with things like markers and highlighters. Alcohol markers kind of blend on their own. These don't. They sit on top of one another. They layer. And I'm not good straight enough to always get... I don't know if you've ever seen how people color with these usually. They go in one straight line, and they go in the next line. And I do that, and you see that I go line by line, kind of all the way across. But I can't do it in like one long line. So I'm going to leave that alone. We're going to move on. This is the thing I tell y'all. Leave parts alone. Let them dry. This right here is already going to have some cool color as it goes. You can kind of see it's already getting that watercolory vibe. Now, find something in kind of the light yellow range is what I'm going to throw at you. Now, if you're a brush marker person and you have brush markers, I'm actually using a number 30. And this is kind of a real buttery pale yellow as my base. I'm going to go ahead and do that over here because I know my bottles are blue. But I got to tell you. So I did this in the blue. And then I looked up. There is such thing as blue. But I didn't necessarily like it. So I think I'm going to turn my liquid in my glass gold this time, instead of the blue. But you could do blue, and there is a thing out there. There is a such thing as blue. So if you notice, I didn't even fill in all the spots there. There's still white left. Leave it. Don't worry about it. It's okay. I'm going to do the same things up here. I don't even know if I'm going to go all the way up on that cap. Maybe around to the little bit of the side. Maybe around to that side. And I didn't even hardly fill in right there. I'm going to come down using the strokes like we discussed. Single strokes. I'm trying not to overlap too much. And in trying not to overlap, you notice I end up leaving gaps a lot. Trying not to get that overlap. That happens to me a lot, which I learned to start. My methods help me work through that. Or make it work in my favor. Since I can't always line them up. So there you go. None of that is in complete alignment. That's going to need a second to dry. So we're going to move on to the next thing. This is what's important. You can't color any single one all at once because too much ink is going to saturate. Too much moisture is going to saturate. And we don't want that to happen. Okay, I am going in with 98 in a brush marker. And I have 3 different sets of brush markers. And they're almost identical by number and color on every single set. So I guess that's a thing. Because honest to goodness, if I bring in the Cali art version of this and I was to color them side by side, you're really not going to tell the difference. This is part of why I can't tell you to pick a brand. I don't know where my Cali art one is, but I'm going to use this one. I'm going to swoop in. Whoops, that is the wrong color, I think. I don't know. Let's try again. See? I'm going to keep making my mistakes in front of y'all. I think it's important. Let's try 99. I like 99 better. So I'm going to leave that one for a minute and we'll come back to it. At first, I just did the swoop. You could do brown on this if you wanted to, down that center portion for your stem. I didn't for this because I'm going to get it so full looking, you're not going to notice the brown stick. That one I've given a second to dry, so I can come in on the off side of that. And we're just going to fill in a little bit. Don't be perfect. Just get your ink in there. Work with your flicks. Same down here. Let's fill in some of our flicks. Now, you can come in with a couple colors of green and really put some depth in this. And the cool thing about brush markers is most of the ones I've played with are all dual tip. So if I really wanted to come in here and add a little more detail, I could take that same green and do similar flicks like I did with my pen to begin with. And that edge is going to slowly start looking fluffier and fluffier. You can kind of see that. You don't have to do this part because what I'm going to do next covers a lot of that. But I did want to show that you can certainly fill that in. That one's had enough time to dry. I can go over it now. We see that is, you would think it would be a whole lot more work than that. I might do a few flicks on this side since I did it on that side. Got a little fluffy. I like super fluffy pine needles. So there we go. I just fluffed it up a little bit. So while that one's drying, we're going to move on to the next thing. Now, mind you, I said you don't have to switch as many colors. I could do this really kind of with one marker. It would just take me longer because I'd really have to wait for each layer to dry a little better, as many layers as I'm going to put on this. But I'm going to come in with 34. This is almost a mustard yellow. And I'm going to pick a few places. We're going to go down on there. We're going to do a couple flicks up through this. Nowhere in particular. This is the part where sometimes you don't have to have the artist know-how. You just have to have some of the learned skills. Like, I don't have the artist know-how to do reflections in particular, or shadows, or shading, or any of those things. So while I'm doing that, while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to go ahead and I'll work on my orange here. This is that same number 30 that I used up here because I want my colors to kind of coordinate. I'm just outlining this thing and not even doing great. Look, I don't even stay in the lines. It's all good. You don't have to stay in the lines. See, I just kind of got all over the place. I did that one intentional. It's fine. We'll do it basically the same way that we're doing kind of these other colors. So while everybody else there is waiting, I wanted to show you the cute thing with the greenery. Okay, I just have, this is Dollar Tree's whiteout pen, and I don't know, they changed the style because the other Jot ones that I have look different. But I'm going to want to make sure this thing is flowing good. So I'm going to jab it off on another piece of paper over here to make sure that the flow is good, because I want this thing really flowing. So there we go. I've got it flowing. Look, I've got it pretty loaded right there. I'm going to come across here, and you look, I'm having to bend this thing to get it to juice out because I've used it a time or two. I'm going to put it across the top of my little branches. The fun thing about whiteout is you're familiar that whiteout can leave a little bit of a texture. And in this instance, it's really fun because it makes it like snow, like you've got real textured snow. With just a little whiteout. Just dribble it on there, down the branches. Wherever you think snow might land. Ooh, I did a little blobby there. I'm going to move it along. Now we have little snowy ones. If you're a snow place kind of person, that has a lot of snow, that is a fun way to add some snow to any one of your drawings or even your stickers. And like I said, when it dries, we all know whiteout leaves kind of its own little bit of whiteout texture, so it'll have almost a real snow-like vibe. So I'm playing a guessing game here while we're going. And I'm going to bring in something orangey range. Go with this one. It's a number 5. Okay, it's a real pale orange. So I'm going to do a little streak of that real pale orange. Actually, I'm going to do it like this because it's easier for me to control. Up and down through some of that lighter yellow that we applied. And now there's some depth in that. And I really didn't do anything more than kind of scratch that on. But as I layer those colors on, you'll start to see it really come together. So I'm pulling in 36. Like I said, you don't need all these different colors. If you had the one color, if I'd have started just with this color, and I let there be way more time in between drying, etc., it would take me more layers, but this color would eventually give me the shading and shadowing just with the one marker, and you'll see that in some of my other videos. But I'm just going to come in a couple spots. Maybe just along these edges. Now all of a sudden we've got some almost believable gold foil. Typically, I kind of go in the places where I happen to have put more of my lines. I might go somewhere around this little label a little bit. And bring that up. And you can see we've kind of got this look like one of those golden foil wrappers. I didn't color in there very well. I just put the lines where I happened to put the lines because my self-control is lacking. I'm just going to come in one more time with another marker. I hope there's been no, I need to wait. That one, my little orange needs a minute to dry. So while I'm doing that, I'll go ahead and go into my wine glass here and add a little of that, whatever that color was. I don't think it was this one. Okay, it's the 36. You'd think I'd write these down, but to be honest with you, I don't want somebody to get stuck on, I don't have those markers, I don't have those colors. We're just trying to get close in the same range. Like, we're trying to get somewhere similar there. I might dab a little of this slightly darker color somewhere on this thing. I don't know, I just dabbed it on there. That's part of how it gets that watercolor look. So the last thing I'm going to do for this area is I'm bringing in this one. This may be harder to find for some people when it starts getting into these. This color is really muted. It come out of my ZSCM brush pack. And I got one of their really large sets. So it had a lot of, most of the ones in this number range are much more muted. They're a lot softer. But I got to tell you what, I've got all these different brands here that come out almost the same color. So anything kind of tan. I didn't want to necessarily go with the gold that was up here. I'm not even going to color the whole thing in. You don't need to. It just gave you the illusion that that label is off-white. So I did all the way down one side, and I'm going to come just at the top of this side and flick that down a hair. Now, on the camera, that may not show up that great. On here, my brain now sees this as an off-white, and it's not registering that it's not fully colored in. I get too excited. It's not registering that it's getting fully colored in. Now, all of a sudden, with that little bit of hint down the sides, this whole little label right here, compared to the rest of this page, I mean, you guys have seen the optical illusions. Now this thing looks like it's off-white, but I didn't really do the whole thing off-white. I just did that edge. That being said, find you highlighters that you like, or find you markers that you like for shading, shadowing, all of those kind of things. Now, I use, this one is one of my favorite ones for shadows. It's very faint. It's almost a gray-green. So I thought this would be good considering the blue-green color that I'm using already. I'm going to go ahead and whip in some shadows here. I know this video is getting long. Fast forward through if you need to. And I'm going to come in and just outline that. Do you see how faint? What do they call this in the paint world? They call them haints. Haint really a color? That's how this set is. And this is not the only one. As a matter of fact, the ZSCM, their brush markers, they have a gray that works very similar to this. This gray here, and you can tell how much I use it, this 107. So it's a very faint also. I just happen to pull all the ones out of the different sets that I have. When I find one of these colors that's so light like that, I kind of keep all those collected together. So you can see it barely leaves a shadow. But when you're looking at this for real, where I'm looking at it, it makes it very dimensional. So I don't know if I want to shadow everything. I might bring that down and just kind of end it right there. And it's such a faint little shadow, but I love how it is a faint little shadow. It's not overwhelming. It doesn't, like, some of your grays get way too dark. I am going to come in really quick with, I don't know, this is 48. Something brown, a Crayola brown right now would have been fine. Like their normal usual brown would probably be fine. And just do right here along this edge. I'm going to bring that down and make the shadow for that right there. Now, I went a little crooked. It's okay. It's fine with me. I'm going to come back in now. If I want to, I can really add a little more dimension to my liquids here. I don't really feel it's necessary. If you look, the way that it dried, the way that I used the marker to my advantage, I think it looks fine. I might, maybe if I wanted to, add a little something right under that label. Like it might be a little more detailed right there. Maybe under this label. Perhaps there around that circle part. I didn't even do a great job on that. It'll be fine. So now you can come in. I don't know what color I want to use. What did I use on my... Oh, I just did it with the ivory color. Okay, that's what I did. So my little labels right here, I'm just coming in with the ivory color and actually... whatever this color was, 30. Number 30. So most of my coloring and stuff is done right here. I might let this dry for a minute. See how awkward that looks right there? I'm going to let it dry for a minute. I'm going to come back and show you. I might have went too dark. I might have not brought that shadow over enough. I'm going to show you how to correct that because I think these are the things that we kind of run into. So let's get into this other side. This is what we look like right now at a distance. Are we kidding? That's pretty cute. Even if you're not into champagne, that's pretty cute for what little effort we put in. But I think there's some fun details there. Now, let's get over here to my little tropical leaves that I got going on here because I'm not really sure. Tropical leaves for January would have been my #1 choice. So I'm just going to try to do what we've already done. I'm going to flick across. I'm really just going to try to fill this whole thing in. Whoops. And I completely was off the page there. I'm going to try to fill this whole thing in with some of the pine needle look. So I pretty much used... Let's see how well this does. Obviously, I'm flicking a hair longer than maybe that side was. I have a feeling this is going to cover that pretty well. I usually have to think that through. When it comes with a design already on it, I normally try to avoid those, but I don't know. This one made me decorate up here in this area where I might have not put anything if it wasn't there to try to cover. So more excuse to doodle. And then once you see the steps and you like get that first attempt down, this stuff doesn't take nearly as long as this video makes it seem like. But I'm sitting here running my mouth, explaining everything step by step instead of just doing. And it definitely comes out a little longer when I'm telling it than when I'm just sitting by myself doing it. Once I have something down pat, it goes a lot quicker for me. Okay, so I feel like that's not bad. I don't think that's a bad way to try to, hopefully I've got the right marker again. Nope, I did it again. Gosh, these lids trick me every darn time. They trick me. That still tricked me. I'm just playing with markers. Don't worry, I'll get it right. I think this one's it. I should have wrote it down. Oh, well, it's more fun and creative for me like that. When I schedule things and I write them down, and I do, believe it or not, you wouldn't realize how much detail I put into organizing my ideas. The only problem is the more that I push myself that way, the less creative I want to be, because then it becomes something other than joyful. So that's what I did. I still almost got some tropical leaves going on there, but I think it's a little better than, I don't know what kind of leaves those were. Somebody tell me. I don't know what those leaves are. I'm coming back in. I'm going to do the same thing and get my snow on there. How fun is that? Now I got some little snowy treetops up there and covered the more beachy, I don't know, those leaves definitely gave me a more beachy vibe than I usually get for this time of year. So that's pretty much the premise of this spread. I'm going to finish this out. Let me zoom out for you. So as I was saying, I will finish this out and just repeat the same images over and over and pop back in and show you what my final result to this. But I wanted you to see the backside because I do get asked about this a lot. Because of the way you just watched me do that, and I let you watch me in real time, I didn't edit anything, nothing's been dropped out. If you see a moment that stops, it's literally because I just paused my camera to sneeze or grab something without making too much noise. So I didn't edit anything out. This is the backside of the section that is more colored. So I wanted you to see that you can, in fact, get a lot of color and layer a lot of color if you just give it just enough time. Move to the next item. That's usually about all it takes. I said this right here was bugging me. I was going to come in with another color and try to blend that out. So there we go. That helped quite a bit. But I'll just repeat the same elements the same way. I have a feeling, because I didn't want to go... I don't know how extra I'm going to go on this one, but I wanted to get the drawing part in because it was real important to me to start generating ideas about using stencils that a lot of us already have. Because I'm going to tell you, when it comes to stencils, I'm not playing. I have gotten myself stencils, but then I never know what to do with them. So some of those came with a set when I ordered a planner. So don't judge me. But the Dollar Tree ones, even as a crafter, these are things that I can use in crafting as well when I pick these images. But I want to show you lots of ways to use a couple of these. And I'm going to bring a few other ones if you're a Dollar Tree person in. If you see a few that you think are cute, go ahead and grab them because you might see me use them this year. You're definitely going to see me use this one multiple times. It is crazy how much use I've gotten out of this one stencil for lots and lots of reasons. But I really wanted to get the idea out there of looking at things from a different perspective when you're looking at your stencils and how to use them and what you consider drawing. As far as I am willing to cheat to get cute results. I just took that little bit of light color gray and ran across that bottom edge of that cap. Did you see that? That's all I did. Just to give it a little shadow right there along that line so it didn't just look solid white. Or it did look solid white, but shadowed white. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this out. I'll come back, show you how many elements I repeated. We've already seen all the elements. I won't bring anything in new. other than my boxes that I add. And I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to adding my boxes, now I'll decorate the inside of them with my own doodles. But when it comes to adding my boxes and stuff, I usually use something like this that'll help me get a perfect square or a perfect rectangle inside of my little squares. The ones like these. I don't know if you guys can see that because it's white. But when I go to do the square areas in here, I always use something like this. I don't have the patience to sit with one of these and try to get all 4 angles correct. So always cheat with that and find another type of square. I'll be back. I'm going to show you the repeated elements, what design layout I went with now that we've gotten all these down. Look at that. That is cute. I think it's cute. Other people might not think it's cute. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to come in and do a couple of random things. Like I might add a few dots right there in the corner of them labels just to, I don't know, it makes it look older to me. You see? I added maybe 6, 7 little dots down there in those corners. And they're real faint because this one the ink doesn't pour out. So the dots are real faint. You could do that anywhere else. Do that on all the labels, or don't do that at all. But that's as far as I'm taking these particular drawings. That's the coloring part that I was going to show you. I told you, don't freak out too much about how you colored inside of there. Once it dries, you can see I didn't go back in and do any secret layers without y'all. I didn't sneak in and change any layers or add anything or come in with a blender. Once it dries, it does change the look a little bit when it's actually really dry into the paper. And all of that color and that gold looking stuff is pretty bold. That green is pretty dark. And voila. So stick around with me for next week. There's other cute elements off of here. And I'll show you a little sneaky. For anybody that lasted through this whole video, I think I may owe you a little sneaky into some more ideas. So I've got this coming up. This is where I tried it in pink first because I do tend to favor pink. Got some cute little tier trays. All of these ideas with this stencil. So stay tuned. If you don't have this stencil now, next time you're at Dollar Tree, look through it. They almost always have this one. Or look at some other stencils you may have somewhere with similar shapes. I probably could have pulled off some of the bottles with a shape like that. You could probably do it with a rectangle and then narrow out the top. So don't be afraid to use your stencils for something else, even if it's to help you get a straighter line, a better curved line. And I gotta be honest with you, I've had these right here for years as a scrapbooker, which have some really cool curves. But when you're working at a scale this size, these are very seldom very useful to me. But all these ones like this, absolutely useful. I've gotten so much out of this. And now that you know, you'll start recognizing where and when you might see certain curves in my work from that stencil. But we've got a lot of fun things coming up. You can see there's a couple other options. I actually even drew that one with a little bit of wrapper sticking out. Just kind of however you want to go. Oh, forgot one little element. The little label right here. I'm starting with a pink. I don't know why. Because I did. I'll give that a second or two to dry. And then come in with some kind of red. Literally, I don't know, red. Like it's just very red. And kind of come around that a little bit. And that's all I did. And let me get you a little closer so you can see. Literally all I did, where I did that letter C, I put the lighter pink, and the outer part of that C, I just did the red that quickly. I don't put that much thought into, is my shadow correct? Is my highlight correct? I don't know. But at a glance, does it look like it might be correct? Close enough for me. I hope it's close enough for y'all. I hope it gives you a few ideas. Please don't strive for perfection. And every time I hear, I wished I had that kind of talent. It's not talent. It's I figured out how to use the things at my disposal and how to use them in a way that I personally find so much easier than most of the artwork that I see. Because it doesn't just flow out of me naturally with natural talent. So I find all the cheats and the shortcuts, and this is how I do it. Even with jerky hands and bad coordination and mistakes and errors. And you guys watch me make mistakes in this. But when you glance at that, are you really looking for the mistakes, or are you just seeing that overall that turned out cute and enjoyable and something I could do myself on my own pages all over on the dates I want to? However, that's really what's more important to me, and that's part of why I don't shorten anything for you guys. I want you to see mistakes are made. I'm not perfect. It's not talent. It's just learned things and then learning how to deal with my mistakes as I go. That's kind of the point of life. But that's all I got. If you wanted to, you come back in with a white pen, highlight in some spots. I didn't find it necessary with any of this artwork, in particular, because of the way I colored it in. I didn't find it necessary to come in and do any highlights on anything, but you certainly could if you wanted to come in and, you know, use some white pen on top of things. The one thing that I did do on a couple of my other ones is right here on these green, I took a white pen and flicked it a couple times here and there where it just looked like there was like a couple little bitty ones, little bitty strands that had some snow on it, but that wasn't even necessary. And unless you're real close to my book and looking, you don't even see those slightly little snowy needles, but I did do that. That's all. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you some ideas, even if you're not a champagne person, which I am not, but I did think it was feminine and pretty to start out my year, and the rest of the things kind of lean similar to this. I hope you like it. I'll be back here shortly with an entire finished page, and you can kind of look to see where I put my elements and how I used these elements over and over. And maybe it'll inspire you to try at least maybe the branches, maybe just the branches and the dried orange. Okay, y'all, this is pretty much my final results. Anything beyond this point, I add extras as I go in to like do that week and write the things down. So I may add more squares where I need them. I might add some check boxes or lines or something like that as I need them. I went pretty basic because this is already a long video. But I wanted you to see how I just use the same elements over and over. Let's get a little closer in some spots. Okay, let's go ahead and have kind of a little tour. I do see something I forgot to do. I forgot to add my snow on my other little greenery. But I've already filled in my weather section. This is what I meant, that I kept one specific to weather, and of course I haven't finished my meal plan part. You can see where I put my weather in. Most of that's just I just kind of sketched that in myself, used a couple squares, add a little more greenery to this side, and I'm pretty satisfied with it. Like I said, it's not really a theme that I don't necessarily make alcohol themes. It's just for New Year's. This one just seemed like such a fun one to do. And you could have turned around and maybe turned these into fancy bottles of bubble bath if you were doing like a really girly page. And I guarantee you're going to see me use these same stencils in a lot of other ways. But this is what I got out of it. For what little effort, you can see the markers from the time I started this to the time that I finished the extra details, and I came straight back to you guys. These have all dried. That marker has dried a whole lot more, and you can see there's a big difference from when we first start to color it in to what the final end results are. It softens quite a bit. It really starts to pull together that watercolor look without all the mess, and I can't wait to show you how to do similar things with even less markers, especially if you don't have large collections. I promise it can be done with just a handful of markers. We'll get to some of those spreads. But this really wasn't that many colors. I love how it turned out. I can't wait to get started on the other ones. And I am kind of happy that I chose this blue color to begin with, because the way it ended up matching down this center section as well really makes me happy. So that was just lucky coincidence. Can't wait to show you guys more. I hope you like this. I'll try to do better at making them shorter, but I got to tell you, it's multiple tutorials in one. It's the doodle tutorial, it's the coloring tutorial, and it's the layout on a planner spread tutorial. So essentially, this is 3 different types of tutorials in one. It's very hard to squish all that information in there and not feel like I left something out for you guys. So that's all I've got. I plan to spend a little more time with you soon. And, oh, really quick, just so you can see, after everything's colored in and I did all that work, there's my backside, all nice and clean. Just thought I'd show you that. Because I took the stage with the markers that I did and did it a little bit at a time and moved along from one item to the next. There you go. Hope you had fun with it. I had fun sharing it. I can't wait to fill this in and do so many other ones this coming year. I have been itching to get my hands on a planner. That's why I settled for a planner that wasn't even really what I was looking for, but I was really excited to get started. That's all I got for you. See you guys soon.